house. They didn't ring the bell, but just kept standing there. When I looked out through the window, there were about 6 men playing the rock, paper, scissors game at the front door, completely soaked in the rain. All of them were wearing aprons with forks in their hands. Some of them were holding ketchup and mustard bottles as well. I lived alone, and they were perfect strangers. All of a sudden, they shouted, "Hey, open the door. Whatever there is in the house, we will eat it all up." I kept silent, trembling with fright. Then, I heard them whispering to each other, "Hey bro, are we gonna grill it or deep fry?" "Nah, let's boil it today." They whispered to each other for some more time, then left. But I had to quiver for quite a long time, paralyzed by fear. Several days later, it rained again, and I heard some people's voices in front of my house like before. When I looked outside, it was them. They were arguing with each other at the front door, getting rained on. One of them shouted, "You know what? I was almost hit by lightning today, just like barbecue." "So, we are gonna barbecue you tonight." They started to giggle. I ran out of patience with them, and in the end I yelled, "Hey, wanna be really hit by lightning or get tased by the police? You choose." Then they just left, hurling abuses. And fortunately, these guys haven't appeared anymore since then. I was finally able to breathe again. However, I heard the shocking news before long that a woman was missing in the village. And one day, the police came to my house. They asked me about the guys who used to hover around my house and if I still remembered what they looked like. I answered I didn't remember their appearance because they used to come at dark on rainy nights. According to the police, those guys were assumed to be prime suspect in this missing woman's case. They said that the woman called the police before she was missing because some suspicious guys standing in front of her house. And the situation she described was highly similar to what I reported. I suddenly got goosebumps. The police got the CCTV footage recorded from nearby the missing woman's house. However, it was a total shock. In the footage, there were 6 guys standing at the front door. After a while, she opened the door, and they suddenly started to pierce her with sharp forks, then rushed into the house. It was 2 days later that the guys finally came out of the house. However, the strange thing was that the woman was missing, but she had never stepped out of the house throughout the footage. If she was really kidnapped by the guys, they should have dragged her out of the house, but in the footage they didn't. What they got was not her, but just a number of black plastic bags in their hands. She was not seen anywhere. That meant she was definitely inside the house. But she disappeared and nobody was home. After the police searched inside the house thoroughly, they discovered something terribly shocking. Her bloodstain was found in the bathroom, and the guy's fingerprints on kitchen tools like cutlery, plates, and pots. The guys ate something in the kitchen and the woman was missing. The police started to track down the suspects. Soon, they were arrested. The guys spit out the truth that they ate the woman up. Besides, it was discovered that they did this thing to several more people after her case. I was totally shocked with fear and disgust. If I had opened the door that night, I would have been their prey. The guys' voices on a rainy night. I could never, ever forget. I don't exactly remember when it began, but I started to have nightmares. I was lying on the bed in my room. I heard someone sniffing around. When I opened my eyes, I saw a strange man sniffing my body. I tried to scream, but failed. I lost my voice. The man put disposable gloves on both his hands. Then, he grasped my body and started to gnaw off my flesh. I felt unimaginable pain being eaten up alive, and it continued until I was literally stripped to the bone. Then, I woke up screaming hysterically. One day, my mom took me to the hospital, but the doctor said I was totally fine. He said too much stress could cause such nightmares. A few days later, I started to have the same nightmares again. This time, however, However, I stiffened up my whole body when the man was about to gnaw off my flesh like before. Then he said, "Hey, relax," tapping my body. I kept the body stiff and tense, and he kept failing to gnaw off my flesh. Then, he just had gone, saying, like, too hard. I sighed in relief, but the nightmare had continued again and again. Every night, different men appeared in my dream, one by one, and stood still in my room. If I kicked one out, then another one appeared. Each of them looked bizarre, and the way they acted was very creepy. For example, one of them pulled out all my hair until I was bald, then ate it all up. I had to feel the entire pain of being plucked out helplessly. When I woke up the next morning, I couldn't believe that it's real that I still had my hair, even while touching it. The next night, another man dropped a huge watermelon directly on my face from the ceiling height, and I had to face the pain of my nose being broken. He repeated it over and over, and I howled in extreme pain all night long. Another one came and stuck needles into my whole body. My body was stuck with more than 1,000 needles through the night. Every time he stuck it into my body, he clapped his hands with delight. After I woke up from the dream, it was like I was going completely mad. And this was really messing me up. I went to see a psychiatrist. And I said, every night, strange men appear in my dream and torture me like hell. Please help me stop this horrible nightmare. The doctor said, to them, you are the one from a different world. They're playing with you because you're interesting. And he laughed like crazy. I woke up screaming. I barely gathered my senses and found I was in a hospital. I also saw my doctor and mother. However, my mother's face turned into a strange person's face. Then, she choked me, yelling out, "Get out! Don't get into another's dream!" Feeling suffocated, I slowly passed out. When I woke up after a while, I was on the bed in my room. I went to the doctors, but what I was told to do to get better was just to take rest and recharge. I couldn't distinguish between dreams and reality anymore. I got into a huge panic and suffered from insomnia every night. Several weeks had passed, and I was gradually getting used to nightmares. The way those people in my dream acted was always uncanny and creepy. For example, when they saw me suffering in pain, they got very happy. When they saw me screaming, they mimicked my voice and made fun of it in amusement. Like this, the way they acted was bizarre and different from normal people in the ordinary world. So I thought maybe I could fight against them by observing the way people acted. I mean, if they looked unusual, I could quickly realize that it's just a dream. And one day, while walking along the street, I saw a standing woman. I approached her to take a close look. She was as beautiful as a Barbie doll. I said hi to her, but she spat in my face. As her response seemed to be unusual, I guessed this was definitely a dream. As I was in a dream, I decided to try to attract her for fun. "I'll give you whatever you want." Then, I walked into a jewelry store, stole lots of jewelry, and gave it to her. She leaped for joy, and our romance was about to begin. At that moment, however, I heard the police siren blaring. But I didn't care because I thought it was all just a dream. When the police came to me, I threw a punch right in their face. Then they took out their billy clubs and beat me without mercy. Completely knocked down, I blacked out. When I opened my eyes, I found I was in an intensive care unit. After that, I decided I would not act thoughtlessly, even in a dream. And fortunately, I hadn't had the nightmares anymore since then. But something was still weird. People on the street stopped and stared at me, standing perfectly still, just like mannequins. And when their gaze met my eyes, they ran away at full speed. Even my family, friends, all the people around me just glared at me, in perfect silence, at all times. Whenever I called them, they didn't answer. No one responded to me. And every night, mysterious men kept visiting my home. They broke down the door, invaded my place, and tortured me again. One guy covered my body with cement. Another one broke my bones with a hammer. And another one tried to pop my lungs by pumping air through my mouth. Every time, I barely managed to kick them out. But the next day, they barged into my house over and over again. When it happened, I called the police, but they couldn't catch those guys. Sometimes, I went to see a psychiatrist thinking I might have delusional disorder or delirium, but nothing got better. This way, I had 3 terrible years. And one day, I woke up from sleep and saw the warm, bright sunshine coming through the window. At that moment, I finally realized that I had never seen the sunlight for the last 3 years. And with a splitting headache, all the puzzle pieces of my memory fell into place. I just realized that I had lived in my dream world for the past 3 years. I looked at the calendar. I thought 3 years had passed, but in reality, only 1 day had passed. I howled and cried. In the real world, I finally received psychotherapy for quite a long time. Several months had passed, and the doctors said I had gotten much better than before. Fortunately, I haven't had a nightmare since that day. I also haven't gotten into panic anymore. But I am still fearful of getting stuck in the dream world again, and fearful of failing to get out of there for a long time.
This is about a disastrophe happened in a party 3 years ago. I met a beautiful woman there who gave me an unforgettable nightmare. When we met first, she shouted,
"Finally, I got you.
and she continued touching my forearm.
I've been looking for an adventurous and powerful man."
So I told her I was born to be a powerful male. Super powerful. She giggled, and I kept showing off my muscles to her. And I was finally invited to her house, and we went there together. However, as soon as we walked in through the front door, I found a goblin-costumed man standing with a club in the living room. Suddenly, she shouted at me, changing her facial expression.
"Your first quest? Kill the goblin."
I got confused for a moment, and soon burst into laughter, thinking that it's a prank. However, at that moment, the goblin man started to lunge at me with a horrible shriek. He violently swung his club at me, and I finally realized that this was not a joke. When his club hit my temple, my vision turned black and my ears went ringing. Enormous pain overwhelmed me, and I was almost about to be knocked down. I struggled to pull myself together. Then, with extreme anger, I started counterattack by tackling, pushing him down, and punching in the face without mercy. Even while I was hearing him screaming, like, "Ah, you win, I surrender," I just kept punching him. His face got crushed, and he fainted away after all. Gasping for breath, I shouted at her, "What the hell is this shit?" Then, she shouted back to me,
"Congratulations, you've just beaten the goblin. You level up."
I shouted, walking towards her. "Are you insane? This is not fun at all." But she ignored what I was saying. She just came to me and said, pouring me a glass of wine,
"This health potion will help you restore your strength. Drink it."
I grabbed her by the throat and shouted, "Why are you doing this to me? Why?" The blood from my mouth spattered all over her face. She said,
"My life was so boring. So, I've been looking for what could make me happy. And finally, I realized I was happiest when I was playing the game. But computer games? Nah, it's too boring. That's why I created my own game, to play with real people. You are now in my game.
Then she shouted.
Let's move to the next quest."
With that shout, a closed door opened, and a man popped out of it. He was holding a large hammer in armor. I tried to run away, but she was already standing guard at the door. She shouted,
"Just roll with it. Just think you're a game character, which exists only to satisfy my pleasure."
The man in armor ran to me, yelling like a warrior, "I'm going to take your head as a trophy." As he brandished his hammer like crazy, all the furniture around us got smashed and windows were broken. She shouted again.
He's a level 10 warrior. If you beat him, you'll level up much higher than before.
In the blink of an eye, I got knocked out by a blow of his heavy hammer. I had blacked out for about 3 seconds. When I narrowly opened my eyes, I found him tramping towards me. Blood trickled down through my